Chair Jay Powell did juice the markets at certain points yesterday. The Dow soared 530-plus points right around this time, when he didn't say that a cut in rates was coming, but he also said that a hike in rates was not on the horizon. The excitement, though, a short shelf life. The Dow gave up nearly all of that. The S&P and NASDAQ ended up closing in the red, probably because Powell made clear he will not cut rates until inflation drops to the Fed's 2% target there. So you can see this big move up, and then yeah, they did not win the day. To get there, the economy needs to slow a bit more. And tomorrow we'll get the all-important jobs report for April, which might give us a hint here. But look at this. The economy is expected to have added a robust 243,000 jobs last month. With a still tight labor market and rates higher for longer, is it time to lock in a sure thing by buying treasuries? Two-year yield right now, 4.89%. Let's get to the floor show. In his first interview since the Fed's meeting yesterday, Wall Street's biggest name in bonds, BlackRock's Rick Rieder, joins me right now. Okay, Rick, you've been distilling what Powell said for the past 20 or 23 hours here. Nope. The last time you were here, which was 2 months ago, you said 2 rate cuts starting probably in June. Are you ready to amend that?
So I'd say a couple of things. So you were also, remember when we were talking about, like, everybody was saying they're going to cut in March. It's crazy. Like, the markets were way ahead. You know, June felt like the right time. You could prepare the markets. However, service level inflation has stayed sticky high. I mean, the 3-month moving average service level inflation is 6.6%. And by the way, it's a service-oriented economy. It's a big number. So, yes, I think they got to wait. They got to give it a bit more time. Listen, I thought the chair did a really good job. At the end of the day, are you really bringing down service level inflation by keeping the funds rate this high or higher, as many are calling for? He's just going to sit on his hands for a bit. We need to see service inflation come down. By the way, goods inflation is 0. If you take the 3-month, 6-month moving average, they're 0 or slightly negative. It's service level inflation, insurance, education, healthcare costs. It's pretty hard to use the funds rate to move those. So he's just going to take a bit more time. But listen, I still think he can get a cut or 2 done this year.
Okay, but hold on. I need detail, Rick.
Yeah.
When and by how many?
So, I mean, he can't. I mean, listen, he's probably going to wait till the fall. But listen, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he goes.
September and November are both considered fall.
Right. So my guess is he starts in September. Listen, it's not out of the realm of possibility he goes a bit before that. But I think he's going to wait and see the data. And listen, we got to see that service level inflation come down. You know, I say this, I've given a bunch of presentations to show this. You think about what's happening. You're really hurting the goods economy. Inflation's come off. You're hurting small business, local banks. You're hurting lower income by keeping the rate here. You really need to get it down. I mean, by the way, we're talking about inflation of 2.8. Core PCE, 2.8. It's not, core PCE.
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad. And it's like, how many jobs do you want to take people out of to slow the economy to hope you bring down healthcare costs? It doesn't work. And so I think he was very clear, he would like to bring that funds rate down. And the bar for raising it is quite high.
Stubborn inflation. Now, the data, you just pointed out services.
Yeah.
We have gotten the alphabet soup lately. ECI, hotter than expected.
Yeah.
CPI, hotter than expected. Certain parts of the PCE, personal consumption expenditure, retail sales. I mean, we could put up this alphabet soup on the screen. Look at all of this. ADP National Employment Report yesterday, hotter than expected. All of this shows a pretty decent economy, does it not?
Listen, I know we talked about it a bunch. You remember when people are saying recession, hard landing, soft landing? The U.S. economy is in really good shape. Service-oriented economy, incredibly resilient, and I think it'll keep chugging along. I think you get 2% real GDP this year, and maybe you get, let's say, the price deflator's 2.5%, you get 4.5% nominal GDP. Pretty good. I mean, people criticize the Fed getting there on inflation. If you said at the beginning of this year, we're going to have 4.5% nominal GDP, and we have a little higher inflation, but wages, particularly for lower income, are higher. You're putting millions of people to work. I mean, literally, and a lot of it's come in. We filled a lot of these jobs with international through immigration. Listen, I mean, it's not a bad thing. When you increase the supply of labor, put a lot of people to work with an economy that's got a lot of debt on it, it's not a bad thing. I mean, people criticize we need to get it from 2.8 to 2. I'm more interested in, just keep the economy moving. We got a lot of debt on this economy.
Okay. Fed Chair Powell yesterday juiced the markets, as we said at the top of the show, at a certain point. I think it was around 2:41. 2:41 p.m. Eastern during that news conference. Here's what he said, and it wasn't about a rate cut, it was about a rate hike. Let's listen, you can react.
I think it's unlikely that the next policy rate move will be a hike. I'd say it's unlikely. Our policy focus is really what I just mentioned, which is how long to keep policy restrictive. You ask, what would it take? I think we'd need to see persuasive evidence that our policy stance is not sufficiently restrictive to bring inflation sustainably down to 2% over time. That's not what we think we're seeing, as I mentioned. But that's something like that is what it would take. We'd look at the totality of the data, answer to that question. That would include inflation expectations, and all the other data too.
Is he going to have to eat his words on no rate hike?
I mean, listen, by the way, he said it's unlikely. Mm-hmm. If inflation is stubbornly high for longer or starts accelerating more, will he have to raise them? He could. I don't think he's going to get there. There's a number of things that will happen that keep inflation around this level. The tricky thing is getting it down from here. I would argue the Fed's mandate, people think the Fed's mandate's 2. It's price stability. 2.8 is not that horrifying. 5 is horrifying.
Okay, let's talk to the investor out there who still thinks that there may be a moment where they should put some money in treasuries, only not so much the T-bills at the moment, but look at something that we pointed out that we saw today that we thought was rather unusual. It wasn't so much that the 2 years where it is, it's where the 5, the 7, and the 10-year yield are, and they're basically exactly the same, 4.58. Everybody look to the right-hand part of your screen. 5-year, 4.58%, same as the 7-year, same as the 10-year. So can you give me a sense of which part of this curve you would park money in?
So I'd say markets are never easy. There's one thing that I think is easy. So if you take today and say, historically I've been in the bond market. When you lent companies money, the longer you lent them, A, is the company going to be around? B, I need to get paid for my money being out longer. Today, why take the risk? Just sit in the, I would argue, sit in the 2 to 5 year part of the curve.
Okay.
Keep this yield. And by the way, I know you mentioned it last time, I run this ETF. We're clipping 680 yield, buying credit, buying investment grade, buying agency mortgages, parts of the high yield market.
This is BINC.
BINC, it's our BlackRock income, flexible income
That's the
fund.
yield, 6.58%?
6.8.
6.8%.
And by the way, we're not taking that much risk, and our duration, our interest rate exposure is about 2.5 years. So, and we're buying a lot of high quality. Average rating is high BBB. This is for fixed income. I know we've talked about this before. Like, if you can get these yields without taking that much risk, I don't have to buy a lot of emerging markets. I don't have to buy a lot of, triple C yield. You stay pretty high quality.
Why not?
And you clip a lot of yield. It's a pretty good, if you're building you have an equity portfolio, historically people said I got to own long interest rates because it hedges my equity. Why do it? Just build income, put equities next to it, and you have a lot of nice balance, and you're clipping a lot of yield along the way.
Well, while you were speaking, we just hit session highs here on the Dow Jones Industrials, up 379 points. So stocks and bonds are pretty interesting at the moment. Rick, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Rick Rieder, and the headline there is that he says September, first rate cut in September, right? All right, we'll see you then, and hopefully earlier than that.